Hey guys, I'm live and pinning up my hair. I start most of these videos like somebody else has clicked go live and I wasn't ready, but it's me. It's just me. I got flea treatment on all of the cats, and only Fitz is acting like he's been betrayed. So that's really good. Did you just get in? I tried to use the hair clip, Danny. I tried to use it a couple different ways on my hair, but I need more practice with it. But thank you very much. It is lovely. So pretty. What's up, Nash? Danny, thank you. So yeah, 2 out of 3 cats not feeling betrayed by me. Pretty good. And we can start with a wee recap because we have started about 10 minutes late. Listen, alright. Oh, good boy. Good boy. Didn't betray you. Yeah, that'd be good. I will call you after this. I'm mad at my hair. I don't want to wear a wig. I put on earrings and big lashes, and I was like, this is gonna be enough. This will be more than enough. So last time I read half a chapter because it was really long. Okay, I read almost 3 pages of a chapter. So we've had the party, the play, all of that. Now we're having the long vacation, but first, exams. And apparently for these exams at this school, the girls have to go in front of a guy who will ask them questions. And Monsieur Paul does it for every class, but he can't do it for English because he's a little diva. So he's like, actually, Lucy, you are the diva. And she's like, no, I will get no pleasure out of asking these fake bourgeois bitches, questions that they absolutely cannot answer in English because they suck. And yeah, that's where we left off. So, and Monsieur Paul says, you are one of those beings who must be kept down. I know you, I know you. Other people in this house see you pass and think that a colourless shadow has gone by. As for me, I scrutinized your face once, and it sufficed. Girl, you don't know you're beautiful, but Monsieur Paul does. You are satisfied that you understand me? Without answering directly, he went on. Were you not gratified when you succeeded in the vaudeville? I watched you, and saw a passionate ardour for triumph in your physiognomy. What fire shot into the glance? Not mere light, but flame. Fucking stop it, Niobe. What? You had meat for dinner. You have water from the fountain. Only thing she doesn't have is treats and like a gold litter box. Hey. Mm-hmm. What fire shot into that glance? Not mere light, but flame. Je m'attends pour avertir. I took that as a warning. Yeah, there's a cat. She's right down. Oh, fucking hell. Hi. Evelyn, how are you? I ran out of treats. I don't have any for her. And I forgot. I only wanted her to come up and sit here. Sorry, sweetie. I don't have any treats for you. I'm sorry. Thank you. I slapped them on. The earrings are iridescent. And $4. Yes, it is. It's a cat attack. Because I don't have anything for you. Trying to think of something I can give her. Do you want to smell the catnip spray? The cheap stuff? Come on, hop up. Jump up so the people can see you. What is that? Ow! I don't know how I didn't see that coming. Oh my god. It's not my fault. Because nothing is. Tilt it that way so you can see if she jumps up again. Anyway, Monsieur Paul is like, you know, you really enjoyed that play. I bet you're gonna love showing off in front of everybody being an examiner for English exams. Because you loved being in the play. What feeling I had on that occasion, monsieur, and pardon me if I say you immensely exaggerate both its quality and quantity, was quite abstract. I did not care for the vaudeville. I hated the part you assigned me. I had not the slightest sympathy with the audience below the stage. They are good people, doubtless, but do I know them? Are they anything to me? Can I care for being brought before their view again tomorrow? Will the examination be anything but a task to me? A task I wish well over? Lucy Snow is doing fuck the fans, like, first. Shall I take it out of your hands? Stop it. Come up here if you want to come up. Come on. Come on. Stop it. Shall I take it out of your hands? With all my heart, if you do not fear failure. It's very hard to do a conversation when I am also yelling at Nivy. Oh, hey. Welcome. Respectable. Monsieur Paul is like, shall I take this task away from you during the English exam? With all my heart, says Lucy, if you do not fear failure. Meow. But I should fail. I only know 3 phrases of English and a few words. Par exemple, de sun, de moon, de star. Est-ce bien dit? My opinion is that it would be better to give up the thing altogether. To have no English examination, eh? So he knows the sun, the moon, and the star in English. Did I say that right? De sun, de moon, de star. To have no English examination. If Madame consents, I consent. Heartily. Very heartily. He smoked a cigar in silence. He turned suddenly. Donnez-moi la main, said he, and spite and jealousy melted out of his face, and a generous kindliness shone there instead. Give me your hand. Hi, Jessie. Come, we will not be rivals, we will be friends, he pursued. The examination shall take place, and I will choose a good moment. And instead of vexing and hindering, as I felt half inclined 10 minutes ago, for I have my malevolent moods, I always had from childhood, I will aid you sincerely. After all, you are solitary and a stranger, and have your way to make and your bread to earn. It may be well that you should become known. We will be friends, do you agree? Out of my heart, monsieur, I am glad of a friend. I like that better than a triumph. Pauvrette, said he, and turned away and left the alley. You poor wee thing. Yeah, I have a scratching board for them, but I can't find it because the others didn't use it. Hello, little madam. You want to see the people? No, she wants to go outside. Ready? Fine Ivy. It's one of her ways of telling me she wants to go outside, which I prefer hugely to having to clean the litter box. The examination passed over well. Monsieur Paul was as good as his word and did his best to make my part easy. The next day came the distribution of prizes. That also passed. The school broke up, pupils went home, and now began the long vacation. That vacation. Shall I ever forget it? I think not. Yeah, Niobe is once more just an eye in the dark. I've got a mini. Try and quit for like next year. Madame Beck went, the first day of the holidays, to join her children at the seaside. All the 3 teachers had parents or friends with whom they took refuge. Every professor quitted the city. Some went to Paris, some to Boomerang. Sounds like boomerang, it's funny. Monsieur Paul sent forth on a pilgrimage to Rome. The house was left quite empty, but for me, a servant, and a poor, deformed and imbecile pupil, a sort of cretin whom her stepmother in a distant province would not allow to return home. Holy shit. Sounds like it might have been drawn from Charlotte Bronte's experience teaching in one of those schools. My heart almost died within me. Miserable longing strained its cords. Will I ever forget? That's the kind of thing she would do for Lucy Snow. I ever forget that long vacation? No, it was so memorable. I'm not telling you. I don't owe you shit. I'm Lucy Snow. I have nothing. I love her. How long were the September days? Oh yeah, that's true. This wee girl is so sad. She's the only one that Lucy isn't mean to yet. How long were the September days? How silent, how lifeless, how vast and void seemed the desolate premises. How gloomy the forsaken garden. Grey now with the dust of a town summer departed. Looking forward at the commencement of these 8 weeks, I hardly knew how I was to live to the end. Sounds like lockdown. The Hunchback of Madame Beck. Hunchback. My spirits had long been gradually sinking. Now that the prop of employment was withdrawn, they went down fast. Even to look forward was not to hope. The dumb future spoke no comfort, offered no promise, gave no inducement to bear present evil in reliance on future good. A sorrowful indifference to existence often pressed on me, a despairing resignation to reach betimes the end of all things earthly. Alas! Oh, she's really getting into the pity party now. I love it. Alas, when I had full leisure to look on life as life must be looked on by such as me, I found it but a hopeless desert, tawny sands with no green field, no palm tree, no well in view. The hopes which are dear to youth, which bear it up and lead it on, I knew not and dared not know. If they knocked at my heart sometimes, an inhospitable bar to admission must be inwardly drawn. When they turned away thus rejected, tears sad enough sometimes flowed, but it could not be helped. I dared not give such guest lodging. So mortally did I fear the sin and weakness of presumption. I love how melodramatic Lucy gets. Like, it's a really good description of depression, but also it's just Richard III levels of self-deprecation. Dr. Seuss hadn't even been born yet. Can you imagine? But I heard one of them. Is there a cat toy on the couch? Everything's on the couch. Religious reader, you'll preach to me a long sermon about what I have just written, and so will you, moralist, and you, stern sage. You stoic will frown, you cynic sneer, you epicure laugh. Well, each and all take it your own way. I accept the sermon, frown, sneer, and laugh. Perhaps you're all right, and perhaps, circumstance like me, you would have been, like me, wrong. The first month was indeed a long, black, heavy month to me. She keeps referring to this poor, disabled girl as the cretin. So, should I call her? The schoolgirl. I'm going to call her the schoolgirl because she lives at a school. I'm not going to call her the cretin. The schoolgirl did not seem unhappy. I did my best to feed her well and keep her warm, and she only asked for food and sunshine, or when that lacked, fire. Her weak faculties approved of immersion. Her brain, her eyes, her ears, her heart slept content. They could not wake to work, so lethargy was their paradise. 3 weeks of that vacation were hot, fair, and dry, but the 4th and 5th were tempestuous and wet. I did not know why the change in atmosphere made a cruel impression on me, why the raging storm and beating rain crushed me with a deadlier paralysis than I had experienced while the air remained serene. But so it was, and my nervous system could hardly support what it had for many days and nights to undergo in that huge, empty house. How I used to pray to heaven for consolation and support. With what dread force the conviction would grasp me that fate was my permanent foe, never to be conciliated. I did not in my heart arraign the mercy or justice of God for this. I concluded it to be part of his great plan that some must deeply suffer while they live, and I thrilled in the certainty that of this number I was one. Cretin, she's from the Isle of Crete, yeah. There's nothing wrong with this girl that doing a few activities off the pleasurable activities list can't cure. She's she's just a very lazy person. Nothing wrong with her. Sorry, I'm looking for my lip balm. I really do. I go into these very unprepared. Lucy never misjudges anyone. Everyone around her is just bitches. It was hard. It was some relief when an aunt of the schoolgirl, a kind old woman, came one day and took away my strange, deformed companion. That's how I describe Flora. The hapless creature had been at times a heavy charge. I could not take her out beyond the garden, and I could not leave her a minute alone. For her poor mind, like her body, was warped. Its propensity was to evil. She's an evil, disabled schoolgirl. A vague bent to mischief, an aimless malevolence made constant vigilance indispensable. Aimless malevolence. That's good, I like that. As she very rarely spoke, and would sit for hours together moping and mowing and distorting her features with indescribable grimaces. It was more like being prisoned with some strange, tameless animal than associating with a human being. Then there were personal attentions to be rendered, which required the nerve of a hospital nurse. My resolution was so tried, it sometimes fell dead sick. These duties should not have fallen on me. A servant, now absent, had rendered them hitherto, and in the hurry of holiday departure, no substitute to fill this office had been provided. This tax and trial were by no means the least I have known in life. Still, menial and distasteful as they were, my mental pain was far more wasting and wearing. Attendance on the girl deprived me often of the power and inclination to swallow a meal, and sent me faint to the fresh air and the well or fountain in the court. But this duty never wrung my heart or brimmed my eyes or scalded my cheek with tears hot as molten metal. She's she certainly gets across the way that she feels. The girl being gone, I was free to walk out. At first I lacked courage to venture very far from the rue Fossette, but by degrees I sought the city gates and passed them, and then went wandering away far along chaussee, streets, walkways, footpaths, through fields, beyond cemeteries, Catholic and Protestant, beyond farmsteads, to lanes and little woods, and I know not where. A goad thrust me on, a fever forbade me to rest, a want of companionship maintained in my soul the cravings of a most deadly famine. I often walked all day, through the burning noon and the arid afternoon, and the dusk evening, and came back with the moonrise. Cats are aimless malevolence, yeah. Or sometimes aimed, usually aimless. While wandering in solitude, I would sometimes picture the present probable position of others, my acquaintance. There was Madame Beck at a cheerful watering place with her children, her mother, and a whole troop of friends who had sought the same scene of relaxation. Zélie St. Pierre was at Paris with her relatives. The other teachers were at their homes. There was Ginevra Fanshawe. Oh, just at random, thinking about one of the girls, just thinking about everyone. Nothing important. There was Ginevra Fanshawe, whom certain of her connections had carried on a pleasant tour southward. Ginevra seemed to me the happiest. She was on the road of beautiful scenery. These September suns shone for her on fertile plains, where harvest and vintage matured under their mellow beam. These golden crystal moons rose on her vision over blue horizons, waved in mountain lines. But all this is another gay part. But all this was nothing. I too felt those autumn suns and saw those harvest moons, and I almost wished to be covered in with earth and turf, deep out of their influence, for I could not live on their light, nor make them comrades, nor yield them affection. But Ginevra had a kind of spirit with her, empowered to give constant strength and comfort, to gladden daylight and embalm darkness. The best of the good genii that guard humanity curtained her with his wings, and canopied her head with his bending form. By true love was Ginevra followed. Never could she be alone. Was she insensible to this presence? It seemed to me impossible. I could not realize such deadness. I imagined her grateful in secret, loving now with reserve, but purposing one day to show how much she loved. Pictured her faithful hero half conscious of her coy fondness, and comforted by that consciousness. I conceived an electric cord of sympathy between them, a fine chain of mutual understanding, sustaining union through a separation of 100 leagues, carrying across mound and hollow communication by prayer and wish. Ginevra gradually became with me a sort of heroine, with an E. One day, perceiving this growing illusion, I said, I really believe my nerves are getting overstretched. My mind has suffered somewhat too much. A malady is growing upon it. What shall I do? How shall I keep well? You fucking cretin. That would be wonderful. Everyone's internal monologue is Peter Capaldi. That would be so good. I mean, she's just left alone in a school, just thinking about Ginevra Fanshawe and some boyfriend of hers, thinking about how much they like each other and how they go out and kiss and everything. Normal to think about these things. Indeed, there was no way to keep well under the circumstances. At last, a day and night of peculiarly agonizing depression was succeeded by physical illness. I took perforce to my bed. Yes, that's true. The total of everyone else in her mind is 2 sentences, but Ginevra takes up weeks of her brain space. Just, to take a student at random. About this time, the Indian summer closed and the equinoctial storms began. Equinoctial. And for 9 dark and wet days, of which the hours rushed on, all turbulent, deaf, dishevelled, bewildered with sounding hurricane. I lay in a strange fever of the nerves and blood. Sleep went quite away. I used to rise in the night, look around for her, beseech her earnestly to return. A rattle of the window, a cry of the blast only replied. Sleep never came. She came once, but in anger. Impatient of my importunity, she brought with her an avenging dream. By the clock of Saint Jean Baptiste, that dream remained scarce 15 minutes, a brief space, but sufficing to wring my whole frame with unknown anguish, to confer a nameless experience that had the hue, the mien, the terror, the very tone of a visitation from eternity. Between 12 and 1 that night, a cup was forced to my lips, black, strong, strange, drawn from no well, but filled up seething from a bottomless and boundless sea. Suffering, brewed in temporal or calculable measure, and mixed for mortal lips, taste not as this suffering tasted. Having drank and woke, I thought all was over, the end come and passed by. Trembling fearfully, as consciousness returned, ready to cry out on some fellow creature to help me, only that I knew no fellow creature was near enough to catch the wild summons. Goton in her far distant attic could not hear. I rose on my knees in bed. Some fearful hours went over me. Indescribably was I torn, racked, and oppressed in mind. Amidst the horrors of that dream, I think the worst lay here. Methought the well-loved dead, who had loved me well in life, met me elsewhere, alienated. Galled was my inmost spirit with an unutterable sense of despair about the future. Motive there was none why I should try to recover or wish to live, and yet quite unendurable was the pitiless and haughty voice in which death challenged me to engage his unknown terrors. When I tried to pray, I could only utter these words. From my youth up, thy terrors have I suffered with a troubled mind. Most true was it. It's a footnote here. I believe it is from the Bible. She came once in anger. Sometimes you're just so cross that whatever happens, happens. Avenging Dream. Mortal Lips, yeah. I heard Mortal Lips and Avenging Dream are feuding. Let's see where that verse is from. Psalm 88:15. From my youth up, thy terrors have I suffered with a troubled mind. Most true was it. On bringing me my tea next morning, Goton urged me to call in a doctor. I would not. I thought no doctor could cure me. One evening, and I was not delirious, I was in my sane mind. I got up. I dressed myself, weak and shaking. The solitude and the stillness of the long dormitory could not be borne any longer. The ghastly white beds were turning into spectres. The coronal of each became a death's head, huge and sun-bleached. Dead dreams of an elder world and mightier race lay frozen in their wide, gaping eye-holes. Charlotte Bronte is doing Lovecraft way before Lovecraft. Psalm 88:15 for those about to. That evening, more firmly than ever, fastened into my soul the conviction that fate was of stone and hope a false idol, blind, bloodless, and of granite core. I felt, too, that the trial God had appointed me was gaining its climax, and must now be turned by my own hands, hot, feeble, and trembling as they were. It rained still, and blew, but with more clemency, I thought, than it had poured and raged all day. Twilight was falling, and I deemed its influence pitiful. From the lattice I saw coming night clouds trailing low like banners drooping. It seemed to me that at this hour there was affection and sorrow in heaven above for all pain suffered on earth beneath. The weight of my dreadful dream became alleviated. That insufferable thought of being no more loved, no more owned, half yielded to hope of the contrary. I was sure this hope would shine clearer if I got out from under this house roof, which was crushing as the slab of a tomb, and went outside the city to a certain quiet hill a long way distant in the fields. Covered with a cloak, I could not be delirious, for I had sense and recollection to put on warm clothing. Forth I set. The bells of a church arrested me in passing. They seemed to call me in to the salon, and I went in. Any solemn rite, any spectacle of sincere worship, any opening for appeal to God was as welcome to me then as bread to one in extremity of want. I knelt down with others on the stone pavement. It was an old, solemn church, its pervading gloom not gilded, but purpled by light shed through stained glass. Yeah, I was not delirious, but I was having nightmares, waking nightmares, gay fixations. You don't have to be delirious to have a gay fixation, but it helps. So tired. Few worshippers were assembled, and, the salut over, half of them departed. I discovered soon that those left remained to confess. I did not stir. Carefully, every door of the church was shut. A holy quiet sank upon, and a solemn shade gathered about us. After a space, breathless and spent in prayer, a penitent approached the confessional. I watched. She whispered her avowal. Her shrift was whispered back. She returned consoled. Another went, and another. A pale lady, kneeling near me, said in a low, kind voice, "Go you now. I am not quite prepared." The whole concept of confession is very weird to me. Mechanically obedient, I rose and went. I knew what I was about. My mind had run over the intent with lightning speed. To take this step could not make me more wretched than I was. It might soothe me. The priest within the confessional never turned his eyes to regard me. He only quietly inclined his ear to my lips. He might be a good man, but this duty had become to him a sort of form. He went through it with the phlegm of custom. I hesitated. Of the formula of confession, I was ignorant. Instead of commencing with the prelude usual, I said, "Mon père, je suis protestante." Father, I'm a Protestant. It's Father, I'm a Protestant is like the worst sequel to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Some people say it's going to be a cult classic, but I don't think so. He directly turned. He was not a native priest. Of that class, the cast of physiognomy is almost invariably grovelling. I saw by his profile and brow he was a Frenchman. Though grey and advanced in years, he did not, I think, lack either feeling or intelligence. He inquired, not unkindly, why, being a Protestant, I came to him. I said I was perishing for a word of advice or an accent of comfort. I had been living for some weeks quite alone. I had been ill. I had a pressure of affliction on my mind, of which it would hardly any longer endure the weight. Was it a sin? A crime? He inquired, somewhat startled. I reassured him on this point, and as well as I could, I showed him the mere outline of my experience. He looked thoughtful, surprised, and puzzled. "You take me unawares," said he. "I have not had such a case as yours before. Ordinarily we know our routine and are prepared, but this makes a great break in the common course of confession. I am hardly furnished with counsel fitting the circumstances. Look, sometimes you wake in the night and you've had a bad dream, and you just need to just crawl into bed with somebody. I don't see why that's not a service." Of course, I had not expected he would be, but the mere relief of communication in an ear which was human and sentient, yet consecrated, the mere pouring out of some portion of long accumulating, long pent-up pain into a vessel whence it could not be again diffused, had done me good. I was already solaced. "Must I go, Father?" I asked of him as he sat silent. My daughter, he said kindly, and I am sure he was a kind man. He had a compassionate eye. For the present, you had better go, but I assure you your words have struck me. Confession, like other things, is apt to become formal and trivial with habit. You have come and poured your heart out, a thing seldom done. I would fain think your case over and take it with me to my oratory. Were you of our faith, I would know what to say. A mind so tossed can find repose but in the bosom of retreat and the punctual practice of piety. The world, it is well known, has no satisfaction for that class of natures. Holy men have bidden penitents like you to hasten their path upward by penance, self-denial, and difficult good works. Tears are given them here for meat and drink, bread of affliction and waters of affliction. Their recompense comes hereafter. It is my own conviction that these impressions under which you are smarting are messengers from God to bring you back to the true church. You were made for our faith. Depend upon it, our faith alone could heal and help you. Protestantism is altogether too dry, cold, prosaic for you. The further I look into this matter, the more plainly I see it is entirely out of the common order of things. On no account would I lose sight of you. Go, my daughter, for the present, but return to me again. I mean, when you're feeling very vulnerable and you have to talk to somebody, a therapist will try to get you to do cognitive behavior shit. So why should a priest not try and convert you to Catholicism? It's the same thing. Except the boss of cognitive behavior therapy has, like, not as good a Vatican, probably. I rose and thanked him. I was withdrawing when he signed me to return. You must not come to this church, said he. I see you are ill, and this church is too cold. You must come to my house. What? I live, and here he gave me his address. Be there tomorrow morning at 10. Lucy, don't go. In reply to this appointment, I only bowed, and pulling down my veil and gathering round me my cloak, I glided away. Now I'm picturing Lucy on Heelys, and will continue to do so. Did I, do you suppose, reader, contemplate venturing again within that worthy priest's reach? As soon should I have thought of working into a Babylonish furnace. That priest had arms which could influence me. He was naturally kind, with a sentimental French kindness, to whose softness I knew myself not wholly impervious. Without respecting some sorts of affection, he was hardly any sort, having a fibre of root in reality, which I could rely on my force wholly to withstand. Had I gone to him, he would have shown me all that was tender and comforting and gentle in the honest popish superstition. Then he would have tried to kindle, blow, and stir up in me the zeal of good works. I know not how it would all have ended. We all think ourselves strong in some points. We all know ourselves weak in many. The probabilities are that had I visited Numero 10, Rue des Marges, at that hour and day appointed, I might just now, instead of writing this heretic narrative, be counting my beads in the cell of a certain Carmelite convent on the boulevard of Crécy in Villette. There was something of Fenelon about that benign old priest, and whatever most of his brethren may be, and whatever I may think of his church and creed, and I like neither, of himself I must ever retain a grateful recollection. He was kind when I needed kindness. He did me good. May heaven bless him. Interesting. I assume way more sinister motivations on the priest's part. But Lucy's just like, oh, thank God he didn't convert me to Catholicism. Lucy searching for the patron saint of judging everybody under your breath. Probably St. Paul. My least favourite disciple. Twilight had passed into night, and the lamps were lit in the streets ere I issued from that sombre church. To turn back was now become possible to me. The wild longing to breathe this October wind on the little hill far without the city walls had ceased to be an imperative impulse, and was softened into a wish with which reason could cope. She put it down, and I turned as I thought to the Rue Fossette. But I had become involved in a part of the city with which I was not familiar. It was the old part, and full of narrow streets of picturesque, ancient, and mouldering houses. I was much too weak to be very collected, and I was still careless of my own welfare and safety to be cautious. I grew embarrassed. I got enmeshed in a network of turns unknown. I was lost and had no resolution to ask guidance of any passenger. Yeah, he would have been nice to me, and then I would go to hell with the Pope. If the storm had lulled a little at sunset, it made up now for lost time. Strong and horizontal thundered the current of the wind from northwest to southeast. It brought rain like spray, and sometimes a sharp hail like shot. It was cold and pierced me to the vitals. I bent my head to meet it, but it beat me back. My heart did not fail at all in this conflict. I only wished that I had wings and could ascend the gale, spread and repose my pinions on its strength, career in its course, sweep where it swept. While wishing this, I suddenly felt colder where before I was cold, and more powerless where before I was weak. I tried to reach the porch of a great building near, but the massive frontage and the giant spire turned black and vanished from my eyes. Instead of sinking on the steps as I intended, I seemed to pitch headlong down an abyss. I remember no more. The end of Volume 1. So brave that Volume 1 ends with Lucy dying. Incredible. But, yeah. No, she's not dead. The whole rest of the book, she's like, so then I was a ghost. But I just went back to work because I couldn't think of anything else to do. No, she's not dead. She's just like still feverish from memory. Definitely not dead. Thank you. She would have fun as a ghost. She'd be able to spy on Ginevra all the time. That'll be it. Well, thank you guys for joining me tonight for Villette. It is good that you're here. I'm tired. She becomes a dentist. A saber-toothed ghost dentist. I can't picture Lucy saying those things. Or being that emotionally open. Villette, Charlotte Bronte. Tomorrow is Friday, I think. For me it is. So, yeah, please join me tomorrow night for more Villette or Tingle Mingle, maybe? Harriet Pulver had such a long chapter the other day. Oh, you're all so welcome. I'm so happy people enjoy this. Be kind to each other, wash your hands. The end. See you tomorrow.